All right, good evening. Welcome to the Sweet Talk. My name is Kim Matina. I am your host. Today is Sunday, September 22nd, the last day of summer. Oof. It's
It's
a
over.
sweet goodbye. Yeah, but today in New Jersey, it was almost 90 degrees. I was at the beach today, so it was a sweet goodbye to summer. But I have on my show today Jesse Lubinsky. He's from New York, and I'm so glad to have you on today. Thank you for being on, Jesse.
I am so happy to be here.
I follow you on Twitter and on Instagram, and I know, see that you're a busy person and you're all over the place doing a lot of good for educators all around the world, actually. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now?
Sure. So my name's Jesse Lubinsky. I'm from Westchester County, New York. Although, as Kim and I talked about a little while, we're both New York City born and bred. So she's from Staten Island. I'm from Queens. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. So I have a podcast called Partial Credit. You can find that at partial.credit. I am a Google Earth Experts team member. I'm an adjunct professor of ed tech. I just finished my first book. We'll talk about that, I guess, a little while, but that's coming out in January. So kind of doing a bit of everything and traveling and presenting. So it's very busy.
Yeah, you're really busy. I know you've got a lot of good things going on. I know I just joined the Google Earth community, and I know that you're part of that, and I'm looking forward to learning from that community. And I actually attended a webinar a couple of weeks ago about Google Earth, Google Tour Builder, and Google Maps. They kind of went over a quick overview of them and how you can use them in the classroom. So I find that community they're very active in there. People are very active and asking questions, and it's good. I'm glad
It's
that.
funny. People hear the term geo tools and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm a math teacher. I can't use that," or I'm, that geography is not my thing. And the crazy thing about the geo tool kind of suite is that you can find a way to make it fit with pretty much any subject area, any grade level. It's astonishing. Like my background originally is math. I was a math teacher and technology teacher, and I found ways to incorporate the new Google Earth directly with math students at pretty much every grade level. So it's really impressive, and I don't think people realize the diversity and depth of all the different tools.
I think you have to think out of the box when you're thinking about geo tools, because people they tend to keep doing Google Slides and Google Drawings or Google Docs, and they don't think out of the box. And I'm part of the Google for Education team as well, and I try to promote Tour Creator and Google Expeditions, but the less known tools is definitely Google Tour Builder, and I'm bringing that into my school as well this year with the seventh and eighth grade social studies teachers, because why not, right? Like
Totally.
history needs geography, and I actually created a digital breakout geared on the Google ecosystem, and students had to actually use Google Maps. And you'll be surprised, like, what they don't know or what they do know. And, it's really important to include geo tools and geography in our lessons. And I think it's important for you to even show to use it in math class and storytelling, because I think it's just one of those tools that just they don't utilize them.
So I am. You mentioned storytelling, and I'm huge into using storytelling as a means of communication and learning. And actually, these tools I feel like actually make it easier to do than some of the other productivity tools, where they aren't really helping you do that, right? It's still content based, right? You're still applying content to those tools. Whereas here, these tools really lend themselves to make that happen naturally. So the Google Earth Education Experts, it's a team of about 100 of us that are from around the globe. And in the US, we have, I think, four kind of groupings. There's like an East team and a West team and a North and I don't think a South. I think it's like
South.
Central and South, right? Actually, you thought I was going South. Um, I think it's like Central and South. Um, but we try to run like PD events around those areas to kind of highlight and bring out exactly what we were talking about. Some of those different tools that people really don't understand and expect. And I think in talking about planning for this podcast, we had talked about using this not as an opportunity to kind of say, hey, here's Google Earth, and this is what Google Earth does, but really to talk about some of those tools that might be a little bit more unknown, and or even, to be honest, there's a feature in Google Maps which is my absolute favorite thing to show people, and nobody knows about it. It's like one hidden little gem, which I think that over time is going to be like this game-changing thing that when we've been giving feedback to the developers and saying, what else do we want to see? I'm like, you need to make this part of everything you do because that's how good it is.
Oh, well, please share.
I will. And I'll also add here, Kim and I talked for about a half hour before we started recording. So I've given her permission to cut me off. She tried to get it all out of me early to make sure I was like talked out by the time we started recording. But I don't think she realizes I have the stamina to keep going for like 2 hours. So if she starts giving me the cut signal, that's when I have to like cut things short. Exactly. In Jersey, we just hang up on them. That's it. Done.
That's it.
So let's dive right in. It's funny. The Google, when we're talking about Google Earth, I think still when I do PD sessions, most people, if you ask them about, if they've used Google Earth, they still think of that desktop-based Google Earth, right? Where it was like the downloadable software for your computer, and most schools had it in their labs.
Oh, that's so old.
Right, but it was like no one else could do anything on the network. Otherwise, you would crash the whole network because it was like this intense bandwidth pig. So this is actually, what I'm showing you right now is a page on my website, jesselubinsky.com. It's a sub-page under resources called OMGeo. That's my geo session. There are full session notes for this, with resources and links and things like that. But I actually created this grid just so I can kind of show the different icons for the tools that I kind of consider to be under the geo family. So in this top row right here, moving left to right, we have Earth, Maps. I'm sure you know what this is, Street View, right? With instead of the map pin, there's Pegman or Peg Person if you want to keep it, right? Peg Person. This one is local guides. That's a little bit of a cheap cop-out, but I'll explain why in a little while. My Maps, which for those of you who don't know My Maps, that's actually the only one that is built into G Suite by default. If you would go to create a new document and go to more, you'd see you have the ability to create a new map. That's My Maps. Cardboard, Expeditions, as Kim mentioned before, Tour Builder, Love. And then on the bottom, there's a couple people don't really know about. This one right here on the left is Arts and Culture, which is my absolute favorite tool. I'll talk a little bit more about it. Do you know what this one is in the center? That's Google Earth Engine.
Google Earth Engine, okay.
Which is, we'll talk about that. It has a lot of data sets and things like that, but there's one feature. We'll actually dive into that one first because there's something I'll start off and I'll segue to that maps thing that I wanted to show you. And this one is actually Google. Have you seen this one? This is Google Trips. This lets you kind of plan trips. So notice how, we talked about this. I'm flying tomorrow to San Jose. It knew I didn't put this in here. It pulled it out of my Gmail, recognized I was actually doing the flights, but then it could actually help you make an itinerary for where you're traveling to, show you things to do, things nearby. So cool little extra thing there. So why don't we jump in with Earth Engine?
Okay.
So if we go to Earth Engine, you'll see right here, it says a planetary scale platform for Earth science data and analysis. Boring, right? Like data sets. We're not probably using that stuff.
Right.
But there is one feature on here that I feel like almost any educator can find a way to build into their classroom, and that's Timelapse. So let me ask you a question. Going back to that old Google Earth, do you remember what it looked like when you went to a location?
Honestly, no.
So it was that old satellite view. It was like for the top-down view. And, we all went to our house to see what our house looked like. Like, what does our house look like? It's like, that's the roof.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So Timelapse actually has been collecting this data since 1984 of these various satellite views for different locations. And what you can do is you can explore a different location based on the change in time from that satellite view. So what's cool is they just added this, right? They just added this piece over here on the left-hand side, which allows you to see how it actually has picked out themes and specific locations. What's really cool is the three that I always use to show in sessions are actually all here. So the first one I would always show is Dubai. So if you know anything about Dubai, it's a city that was essentially built out of the desert. And if we actually go to 1984, let's just pause this for a second. So notice how it's going at, I can actually put this at regular speed. We'll actually look at the coast. So notice we're at 1986 right now. If I play this, just watch what starts to happen in the 2000s. We could see, not only do we see the coast building up over here and actually see the city being built, but notice how you could see, if you're looking at the outskirts, like right around here, you could see the cities building out and expanding into the ocean. You know, we talk about global warming. If you take a look at glacier retreat, right, and we go to Alaska, you could actually see satellite pictures taken annually of that glacier retreat, right? Another one I love to show is Las Vegas, another city built out of the desert. But the cool thing about this is any place where you live right now, right? Think about how the Earth's grown in the past, 40 years. You can do a search for anywhere and you'll see expansion, building out the suburbs, greater population density. So it's really cool to be able to go to this time lapse. And again, while I'm clicking these ones here on the left, I can search for anywhere. So if I wanted to search for, Yonkers, New York, that's one that I showed a group of students last year when we talked about our own area, Westchester County. And they were like, well, not much has changed here. And I was like, well, that's not true. Actually, there's been a ton of new shopping developments built. It used to be like farmland. And even in Westchester, if you zoom all the way in on satellite view, you can see changes in these green areas, right? Where some of these areas are actually expanding out over the course of time. So you can see that change happen. Now,
and it goes all the way up to 2018.
Yeah, it goes from 1984 all the way up to current day.
Wow.
And they're still using that imagery, right? So it goes up, right now it goes from 1984 to 2018. So I'll pause that for a sec. That is the time-lapse feature in Google Earth Engine. What I want to do now is take a look at something in Google Maps. And this is the thing that I love, that I was telling you about. This is like my favorite thing. And I'm going to give credit where credit is due. So one of the cool things about being part of the Google Earth Education Experts team is that I get to learn from all the people on the team because, there are lots of things that I know that I get to show people for the first time, but then I also get that same thing coming back from me. And Dave Saunders, I don't know if you know him, he is an educator based up in Massachusetts. He was in a session with me once in Connecticut, and he actually showed this, and this was like my favorite thing. I've been showing it ever since. So this is just regular old Google Maps, right?
Yeah, I'm taking notes,
Well, luckily you're saving the video, so you got this whole thing.
This is true.
Right. So we all know Google Maps. So I'm going to just search for, let's search for Central Park in the city. So I'm just going to do a little zoom out here. Okay. So this is Central Park. This is Google Maps. Now, down in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, you see the little Pegman icon, right?
Yeah.
If I were to click on that, notice a bunch of things appear, right?
Yep.
But specifically, and I'm going to zoom in, you see two things. You see dots and you see lines. Do you know the difference between the two?
I do, yes.
So why don't you share for the audience?
Well, the blue lines indicate where Google took photos of that neighborhood.
Right, so Google Street View car.
Right, to incorporate into the map. And then the blue circles are actually panoramic images.
Right. So one cool thing, and if I were in a geo session with you guys, I would show you this, how to do this. But a lot of people often wonder how you take like those 360 images. And let me just, do I have it right here? Yep. So I have this is a Ricoh Theta. It's a 360 camera. What this allows you to do is notice how there's two fisheye lenses on either side of here. If you were to hold this up and press the button, it would take two images through the fisheye lenses and then stitch them together, and that would create a 360 photo. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you could actually do that with your phone now using the Street View app. So using the Street View app on your phone, if you were to download that and then open up the camera feature, it will allow you to take a 360 photo by taking a bunch of still photos, and then it'll stitch them together. It'll show you how to do that. So these round images you see here, the little photospheres, those are either images that were taken by an individual with their 360 camera or with their phone and then uploaded.
Okay.
And you could usually tell the difference, by the way, because if you see a lot of seams or ghosting, like, you'll see like a leg up in the air because Unfortunately, as you try to take all these still images, the world doesn't stay still around you. It keeps moving. So
Right.
you wind up with like half bodies and things like that.
Right.
That usually tells you whether or not it was from someone's phone or from a 360 camera. But what we want to focus on right now are these lines that you talked about. Those are the Street View cars. So those are continuous 360 images that were taken sequentially that we can move through. So why don't we go down here to Fifth Avenue? And we could tell that this is from Google because if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you could see it says Google right here.
Okay.
Now, here's the cool part. Ready? When was this image taken?
2017.
Right, November 2017. But you see how right next to the Street View, there's a little turn back the clock here?
Okay, there's an icon of a clock, yeah.
Yeah, so if I click on that, I want you to see that in this spot, this very spot where we are, right? The way the Google Street View car works is it's not just trying to document the entire world and get Street View for everywhere. They keep going in to the same places over time because what they want to do is capture the most current versions of the places that have changed over time. So if you look at this, it looks like in this very spot where we're standing, the Google Street View car has driven by and taken images 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times. Now, Google Street View cars kind of came into prevalence, I want to say around like 2009, 2010 was when they first started, driving around and when we kind of started talking about them. So this first image was taken in 2011. Let's say I wanted to go back in time to 2011 and see what it was like along Fifth Avenue. I could just click into this image and now we are in Street View back in 2011. And
That's crazy.
I can now move. I'm moving.
Yeah, so can you pan around?
Oh yeah, no, we're in full. This is what it looked like back in 2011.
So the large picture that I'm seeing on my screen is from 2011, right?
That's correct.
And the smaller image that's up at the top left is the same year, right?
Well, actually, so notice how this is 2011, right? And I could see that because it says Street View 2011. But watch what happens when I get to the intersection. I'm willing to bet it's going to change. Yeah, see how it went to 2014?
Oh, okay.
Now, here's why. The Street View car doesn't always follow the same path, right? So it's always taking me to the time that's closest sequentially to when I took that image, right?
That's interesting.
It's not perfect, but think about this now in the context of what we were just talking about with the time lapse, right? We have 40 years worth of data of satellite view photos that allow us to see change over time. Now imagine that we have that. Imagine having 40 years worth of this. We talk about now studying a place from 40 years ago. We can actually go into Street View,
go there,
and actually look around in panoramic 360 images, explore the streets. Now, here's some examples of how this is actually useful right now. So, I want to say Santa Rosa, California. There were the brush fires.
Okay.
Right, and a lot of damage was done. And they actually showed, they were studying effects of, they were looking at what the town looked like before those fires. So you even have major changes happen, to places now in the past like 8 to 10 years, and you could still see those changes now within Street View.
Well, even like droughts and everything too. You can talk about global warming.
Totally. There's one, it's funny, I showed Fifth Avenue, but I usually go downtown. I usually show like by the East Village. That's usually where I like down on Broadway. And what's funny is there's this spot on Broadway where when you go back in time, you see that there's construction going on in current day, and you go back and you look and it was like a drugstore and then it was a bank. Like in 8 years, it changed from like a drugstore to a bank and then it's under construction again. But you could see these changes at these specific locations. Like we don't lose this data. So it's not like as they update Google Street View, that stuff goes away. It stays there and it can be used as a teaching resource to really enhance what we do in the classroom when we study locations.
Yeah, this is awesome. I didn't know this, and I can see that this is, I can actually, my mind is spinning right now on how I can, make suggestions to history teachers and ELA teachers as well, even math teachers on how to go back in time. Now, let me ask you this
Here's
question.
the catch. Let me just say one thing for you.
Yep.
You can't do this through like the Google Maps app. The only way to access this feature currently is to go to Maps, search for the place, and click on Pegman in the lower right-hand corner. So that's why I was saying how when we've actually given this feedback to the developers, right? It's only available on the desktop version.
Okay.
That's why I'm like, this is like my favorite thing. Like to have historical Street View available is incredible.
Yeah. Now, if you, okay, so if you go out of this location and you go into another photosphere, does it take you back to 2011 or does it take you
Yeah,
back
so
to
let's go
maybe,
back. So now here's
2014?
the full view. If I go into an individual photosphere, it's from whenever that individual photosphere was taken, because this is an individual photosphere. This was taken in August 2019. Individual photospheres, there's nowhere to go, right? It's one still image, so there's no arrow for me to click.
So I have to make sure I'm looking at Google Images.
Yeah, if you want to show this feature can only really be done in the, that's why I was saying with the street view. And when I'm saying street view, I mean Google Street View with taken by their cars, because that's the only one where they have that historical data
Right.
that's going to allow you to go back.
But if I go back to another photosphere that Google took with their Street View car,
Right.
would it go
Yeah,
back
so I'm
even
back out,
further
zoomed
than
out. If I zoom
2011?
back in now, it's going to take me to the most current one from this. So this one was taken October 2017. Notice
Uh-huh.
how that's the most current
So it
one for
goes
this
back to
space.
2009. So it depends on the location on how
Exactly.
far back it goes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when we started out on Fifth Avenue, it only went back to 2011.
Yeah, so
But
this
they had
one is
taken Street View
29.
on this street in 2009. So
Yeah.
it's not perfect. And like I said, it's not perfect in the sense that I might be driving along a main street and all of a sudden the year changes. That's because, again, the car may have taken a left one year, whereas another year it went straight.
Right,
Still,
right. But it's
this is
it's
one of
just
those
a
things that
reference.
the longer we start to accrue data, the more valuable this resource will become. Because if I'm looking 40 years back, I'm not going to care if it skips a year or 2 years 35 years ago.
Now, is there a way that I can, do I have to go down into the Street View, or is there another way, like, I guess, like a satellite imagery of this location, or no?
You can do so. You could do the satellite imagery through Earth Engine, right? Because
Okay,
remember, you could search for locations
that's
there,
true. Yeah. Okay.
right? But also see how there's a satellite button here. This will actually provide you with the satellite overlay.
Okay.
So, but the one cool thing about the satellite overlay is it's using Google Earth data. So unlike Earth Engine, where it's just flat data, if I were to click and then hold shift and kind of move my mouse, notice that it's full 3D imagery. So kind of like
Yeah.
Earth has full 3D imagery, it's using that same Earth data when I'm using the satellite view.
Okay, but then if I click on Pegman, click on Pegman.
Sure. We'll let my processor catch up.
Yeah, yeah. We're testing your your computer.
And for once, I don't have a lot of stuff open. Oh wait, maybe. Oh wait, there we go.
Okay, so there it goes.
So yeah, it's going to show me. I'm going to see all the little dots, and this would work in Earth also. If I were to click on Pegman in Earth in the same location, I'll be able to see all the little dots pop up.
Okay.
And the lines. Hold on.
Yeah, but I wanted. Oh, so you have to actually place him there.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it shouldn't be like that. I usually do this from Earth, so I've never seen.
Oh, okay, not from maps.
Right. If I flip back to map view, it's going to bring it up right away.
It'll bring it up. Yeah.
I think it's because we're using the yeah, so that it's right there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that stuff.
No, and neither did I. But that's the, you mentioned something at the beginning of the podcast where you were talking about like these networks. While the Google Earth Education Experts team is like a private group that's like kind of Google's running that. All these groups that are available, whether it's Facebook or like, they are such great places to be able to not just see what other people are doing in their classrooms, but to kind of ask questions and kind of see what new features come out. And, those communities are so great for, increasing your professional learning.
Oh, I agree. But this is something that I didn't know about, so I can't wait to go back and share with the staff at my school, because I think this can be really useful in the classroom,
Yeah,
And
I love this.
And how would you, now you had said something to me before about using it in the math class. So give me an example of how you would use it in math.
Totally. So I'm going to go to Earth for that.
Okay.
So I worked with, the last time the that we met as a team, like the Google Earth education experts. Wow, it's a mouthful. We all of us met in California. We actually worked on creating resources for various grade levels, specifically to benefit our own schools that we were working with. Like, how could we really see this kind of making a difference in the schools where we were all located? And I worked with an educator from Montreal, Andrew McDonald. He also had a math background. And we were trying to figure out how we can create one set of lessons that would actually apply to all the different grade levels. And we decided to use baseball as kind of a running theme. And even though I'm a Yankee fan, we used Fenway Park because Fenway Park has the Green Monster. And we felt like we could do some pretty cool lessons. So I'll just show you.
I think I need to hang up now.
I'm a Yankee fan. No, I'm saying I use the park. I'm not by no means is this an endorsement for the Boston Red Sox. I actually do not endorse the Boston Red Sox.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on. Can we cut the podcast? Okay. So I'm going to go to Fenway Park. And so this will combine probably a couple things that you may not have used at all in with the geo tools. Hold on. So I'm just going to try to reorient ourselves. Good. So we can see a little top-down view of Fenway Park. We'll make that bigger for our screen. Here we go. Okay, so here's Fenway Park. And for those of you who don't know, so I made an assumption here that everyone knows why Fenway Park is special. So in left field, there's a big giant wall called the Green Monster. And so we were trying to think what type of activities could we do in Google Earth for the various grade levels. And so we talked about at the elementary level how we can do simple measurement, right? So I could provide a guiding question for my students like, what would be quicker, running around the bases or running all the way to the Green Monster?
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. And, it's funny. We asked kids this, and some kids were like, oh, well, it'd just be quick to run around the bases. They're right here, rather than run all the way to the wall. Well, Google Earth actually has a measurement tool. See the little ruler here?
Right.
Allows you to measure distance and area. So why don't we just check this out? So we can actually click on home plate, and we'll measure all the way out to the wall, straight down the line. And notice how that is in meters. I want to change that, right? So we could change it to feet, all the different measurements. So notice how it told me that is 308 feet, 309 feet. Okay, so that's one measurement. Then they would go back and repeat this here, right? And we know it's 90, so I'm not being completely accurate right now, but
right.
It is, right? So if they go all around the bases, wow, that is more than that. So that's using the measurement tool, they're able to answer questions about that. Now that's at an elementary level.
Okay.
Let's talk about going to a different, let's raise the stakes a little bit here. Let's go to middle school, right? One thing that everyone learns in middle school, they learn about the Pythagorean theorem.
Yes.
Right. So we actually found this article. How big of a baseball fan are you?
I follow the Phillies. Don't even go there.
What? I hope you're enjoying Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
So, I'm speechless.
Bryce Harper's sweet. But, the season didn't end the way I wanted it to.
I'm sure it didn't. So, Pythagorean theorem. What we did was we found this article talking about how, I'm sure baseball, there's been a ton of home runs this year. Part of it we think is due to a juiced ball, but the other thing is there's been this trend in baseball the past few years where batters have been focusing on launch angles, on trying to kind of get just the right angle so that they can hit a home run rather than popping it up. Right, the higher the angle you're hitting the ball, the higher the ball's going to go in the air. And unlike the movie Major League where they said it's too high, high is not necessarily good. So we have them read this article, this interactive article about launch angles, and then we say, okay, well, what would be the minimum distance it would take to get the ball over the fence in a straight line, right? So that's like your hypotenuse.
Right.
In order to figure that out, you would need to know two things. You would need to know the two legs. The first leg being the distance from home plate to the Green Monster. So let's say it's 309, right? Now the question becomes, how do I find out the height? Because this is right. This doesn't allow me to measure in
Depth.
the height dimension, right?
Right.
I'm about to show you something else you might not know. Check out the camera down here. See how it camera?
Where?
There's in the lower right hand corner.
Lower
It says
right-hand
286 meters,
corner.
and it gives me longitude and latitude, right? All those different things. Well, check this out. Notice as I move it around, see how the longitude and latitude's changing?
Yeah.
Okay, and see how it says 286 meters? That's where our camera is from the ground. But now check this out. Watch what happens as I move from the field to the monster. So the monster is 11 meters high.
Okay, I didn't see that.
So look in the lower right-hand corner.
Yep.
Next to 100%, it says 0 meters.
It says 0, yeah.
Because what it's telling me is that right now I'm hovering my cursor over something that is ground level.
Flat. Oh, okay, ground level.
So when I hover it over the monster, it goes to 11 meters.
Oh, wow.
So I've now determined that the distance of the monster is 11 meters. What's cool is I could even assess now for dimensional analysis, right? Because they're going to have to convert meters to feet. Once they do that, they now have the 2 legs to be able to find the Pythagorean theorem.
That's interesting.
Let's take it up to high school now.
Okay.
If I wanted to do the law of law cosines, law sines, one of them. If I wanted to actually find right, have you done a Pythagorean theorem? If I wanted to actually now do the law of cosines in order to find the actual angle, the launch angle, I would then have the measurements to be able to find what the optimal launch angle would be. So just using the measurement tool, I can do all of that different stuff with a Google Earth image.
I didn't even think of it in that perspective at all, because I wasn't aware of a few of the things that you just showed off. So that's amazing that we can get that kind of data from a landmark and actually manipulate it into a math lesson like that. Even measurement, Pythagorean theory as well.
One other cool thing actually is I didn't, so if I were to actually draw a figure using this measurement tool, like let's say I just drew the shape of the field.
Mm-hmm.
Once you close it off, notice how it actually gives you perimeter and area as well by default. And I could change that too. So, oops.
Okay, yep, I see it now.
So when you create any closed shape, and if I zoom out, I can actually take that. Yeah. Well, anyway, you can get those dimensions there. If you were in My Maps, you could actually create those polygons over different areas and then move them. So that's another thing. You know, I'm not going to jump over and show it because it'll take too long, but it's just easier for me to say it.
Right.
In My Maps, you could actually draw polygons over different areas. So let's say I said, well, what's bigger, the US or Russia? You can actually, draw a polygon over one and then take it and move it over to another place. So if I said, how many times can a certain state fit in another country, or what's the comparison? You could actually take it and move it over the polygon you've made and move it over the other object in order to determine its relative size.
And you do that in My Maps?
Yeah. So actually, you know what? Why don't we just do
That's interesting. That's a really good perspective of size.
So let's go to New.
Oh, wow.
Google My Maps. Okay, so if I were to do yep.
Oh, so you mean you can actually draw a shape from here and then move it over?
Yeah, so I'm going to just kind of do a rough outline of the US.
Okay.
Okay, we'll call it USA. We'll save it. And now if I were to zoom out, I have my USA. I could take it and I can move it over. Now let me ask you a question. See how as I'm moving it, it looks like the shape is changing?
Yeah.
Do you know why that's happening?
Because of your position is changing?
Because of the curvature of the Earth.
Right.
So if it's over the US, that's fine. Remember, this is a flat version of something which is actually curved. So as you move it up to a pole, it actually appears like it's bigger, but it's not the size isn't actually changing. It's just
It's
relative.
just right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
So you
that
could
makes
see
sense.
like, so, if I want to do individual states compared to countries in Europe, whatever you want to do, you can actually create those shapes here and then move them around.
That's
And there's actually
interesting.
measurement tools. See how there's a ruler here.
Mhm.
It'll also allow you to do measurements and distances. So that notice how I can do distances between different points. And again, as I move from place to place, see how it's moving in a curved line?
Yeah,
Because distance is measured not in straight line distance on a map, but in curved distance along the earth.
that's interesting. I never thought of using my maps for an activity that way. I really like that. I really like because you're giving the kids an actual visualization of size and how big something is compared to something else. So there's a lot of different things going on.
Exactly.
Just
It's amazing
doing
how much
just using
is
maps.
available. I feel like, hold on, I'm going back to here. I'm like, there's so much we haven't talked
There's
about
so
yet.
much. There's so much. But you know what? I mean, whatever you just did in Google Earth and Google Maps and time lapse and then the Google Earth engine, I think was very important because I didn't know anything about those features, and I'm sure a lot of people could agree with me with that. So I'm glad that you went over that with them and with me. So the other tools are more common, but if you want to go over arts and culture,
That
that's
okay,
fine.
good. That was the one I was like, oh, I hope I have time to do this.
Yeah, because
I will
that'll,
be
I mean,
honest, I
a
could
lot of
spend like
people,
3 hours talking about arts and culture, so I'm just gonna try to show like one or two
yeah,
really. I'm actually gonna, I'll show one thing that I love, because it connects back to something you said, and like I said, arts and culture. I feel like you and I will have to revisit this another time on the pod
yeah.
because that is so rich.
And it's
Most
not, a
people,
lot of people don't use it.
well, everyone used it for a little while, but that's only because when the app version came out, there was that "let me show you what historical painting you look like,"
Yeah,
right?
that was a trend and then it
Right.
died.
And what bothered me was no matter how I angled my face, it still made me look like the same weird dude. So I was kind of upset about that. But arts and culture used to be called the Google Cultural Institute. Um, I've loved it for a long. I've loved this for a long time. This actually started out as a 20% time project from a
Oh, it
Googler.
did?
Yeah,
Really?
file this along with Gmail and Google Cardboard and all those other cool things that started off as 20% time projects, but now is really rich. I think back to BG before Google. I used to use Yahoo, right?
Gee.
I can't. I used Yahoo because I liked how it like categorized all the websites, right? You could like click down into the categories and find the websites, like you could organize the internet or something. But I remember on the homepage they used to have like stories, and they would have like these galleries of different objects, like check out these 30 pictures of a shipwreck or something. And I kind of thought that's what this was, but this is like way richer. Um, I guess cutting right to the chase, the thing that I love about this, and I'll give props to Rich Kiker because he actually I saw him do this once, and this was something I loved, and this is actually the example I think he used. So he went to Ford's Theater. Ooh, we all know what happened at Ford's Theater, right?
Yeah.
So Ford's Theater, that's where Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. What's cool about this? So notice it has the gallery of artifacts, but also has these historical exhibits as well, these stories. Now, these exhibits, notice the source comes right below it. So this is actually from Ford's Theater, like the historical museum. So Google partners with all these different museums and places to get all of the different, they curate all this content online. So it's not like they're just throwing images up there. They're actually creating full stories and details on here of all the different resources that are available about the specific topic. So it's the images, the artifacts, the stories. They're there in story form, but they're also here like in those collection of items. The one thing I do want to mention though is this museum view. So see how Pegman's here?
Yeah.
Museum view differs slightly from street view in that not only is there street view, and it's cool because I can click on the different artifacts and learn about them, but notice how the artifacts appear here below. And if I click on them, it'll actually take me to where that is located in the.
So it's basically a virtual visit.
Yeah, essentially. So I like showing this for the White House because, when our kids go to Washington, D.C., they don't get to actually go in the White House. They just get to, if you ask them on the field trip, do they go to the White House? They're like, yeah, but they show you the picture and they're all just like, hey,
Yeah, yeah.
all the way at the gate outside. But this one actually lets you walk through the White House and see all the paintings that are there and everything that's up. But the thing I love about this the most, tying back to your storytelling piece, is let's say I was doing I wanted the students to do a presentation on Lincoln's assassination. Have you had kids do presentations using Google Slides and, or PowerPoint or something like that?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's like they took their report and they made it like font size 6, and then their back is turned to everybody and they're reading all the words. And you're like, why did I do this? This was terrible.
Yeah.
What's cool about this is you have the ability here to create your own custom galleries. So if I go to my profile, see how I have a couple of galleries? So this was a sample gallery I created with 3 images from Lincoln's assassination. So there's gloves, there's the life mask taken from Lincoln, and then John Wilkes Booth's gun. What I can have kids do is go and research all the artifacts, research through, and then I can have them say, you know what I want, the assignment isn't to go to Wikipedia and copy the information off of there and then, show me that you know how to copy information from the internet. What I'd like you to do is go learn about your topic and then pick 3 items or 4 items or 5 that you feel best represent whatever you're trying to present on, and tell us the story about how those artifacts fit into what you're trying to tell us. Go up there and tell me a story, right? Because I want to do a few things. Yes, they need to learn content, but I also want to know that they're able to kind of
explain it in their own words,
synthesize it, right? And be able to convey that story. Because if you look at studies where they talk about students and how they remember content in school, students who learn content through a story form show a much higher retention rate than those who just kind of learn facts that were rote and disconnected from other types of information.
Well, that makes sense.
Totally. I mean, that naturally makes sense, but it's also an important skill, right? Yeah.
Some people don't teach that way. So that's why you need to expose teachers and students to these type of tools to display their learning in a different way.
Right. It feels so disjointed to be like, now it's time for us to learn how to do a presentation. And it's like, well, no, those presenting skills should just be built into the assignments that we do every day. So I love how this
profile though, you went into.
So I had actually gone into the objects themselves.
And then you
and see how there's a little heart here.
Okay, yeah,
that heart allows you to add it to your favorites, and then you can create a gallery within your favorites.
Oh, wow. And then they can share the gallery with you via Google Classroom.
Or, what they can do is, so notice I'm in my gallery right now. Notice how when I click on share, it allows me to share this directly to Classroom and provides me a link directly to this gallery. So I can actually share that out. I could submit it as part of a classroom assignment, or there's a ton of different ways to do this, but it's...
Wow, that's awesome. Oh,
yeah, and this is just, this is like one thing. We could spend another 2 hours just talking about arts and culture. But that's that's my favorite thing.
You'll have to come back because I actually like this much better than what you were showing before, because I feel like this is the presentation. This is the tool that kids can use. It's like a Pinterest board. You can think of it as
of curated items. So it's not even like they've already done the hard work and curated all the items. And this is not like Google using some algorithm. Actual museums and people who are experts on these different topics and stories and places are the ones who've been curating these different items. And now you can go find out, research, do the research, and then present. Explain to me why this gun is important. Explain to me what is a life mask? When did they do this? Why is this important? When did this happen? You know what I mean?
And all the content that's in here is it's checked over, it's legitimate, or is it?
If you look at let's click on this picture right here,
where people are just uploading their information to it and it's not verified.
So take a look at. So I just clicked on this picture. See, the source here is Ford's Theater. Ford's Theater actually provided this.
Where do you see that at? I don't
see right next to see. Here's the name, the artist, and then over on the right it tells you who it's sourced from.
That's because your picture is covering it.
It's funny when we were at our Google Earth Education Experts Summit. I told you we spent time developing resources, but my favorite time of that whole experience was they brought in developers from the different geo tools and gave us round table time. We went from person to person every 10 minutes and kind of had time to talk to them. And the person I was the most excited to talk to was the arts and culture person. and she was telling us how they are basically spending a lot of time going out and making more partnerships and connections with different museums and things like that to bring all of that content into here.
That's
So it's
good
not
because I can
right.
see teachers asking me like, the kids, if they start searching, are they going to be searching content and, inappropriate content come up? Like they'll be worried about it, like, because it's not, it could
So
be,
let
it
me
could
draw
be,
one
there could be
analogy.
an issue
Right.
there
So
with,
when we started talking this episode, we started talking about on Google Maps how there's the photospheres, how you can make those photospheres, right?
yep,
One of the things I love about Google Earth is that it's an open ecosphere, meaning that you have people that are
anybody
contributing
can
content,
upload.
right? Anybody can contribute content. This is a closed ecosphere, so
Okay.
public people are not just adding content and resources. This is closed off, and whatever you're seeing here has been contributed by a reputable source.
Okay, good. That's good. Oh, I'm so excited about this. I can't wait to share this with my social studies teachers.
Oh my god, this is just one little
It's
thing in arts
awesome.
and culture. We'll have to,
You're
yeah,
gonna have to come back on.
yes, we'll do that for
Yeah,
sure.
you're definitely gonna have to come back on because we are running out of time.
You're giving me the signal. We're
The
cutting it
signal,
off.
the
We're cutting you
signal, the
off.
cut off signal.
That's
Oh
good.
my
But the good
gosh.
news is I have enough stuff for like 2 or 3 more episodes. So
Yeah,
I'll
we'll do
definitely
this.
come back.
Yeah, you definitely have to come back when you're back in New York. You'll definitely have to come back on because, there's a lot of things that I want to ask you as well, but, because you do have so much knowledge about the Google Earth tools and the geo tools, but these things that you just went over tonight was amazing, and I'm glad that you took the time to be on the show and go over it because I know
Absolutely,
I
my
learned
pleasure.
a lot.
I love showing this stuff because I feel like that when teachers see this, just like you had that like aha excited moment, that's what we want teachers to have, right? And
Yeah,
all this
this
stuff is
topped
out
it
there
for
and they
me.
don't realize it. It's like right there, they have it.
This definitely topped it for me. Like I
It's
wish we
free.
would have started the show with this, but I'm glad that
No, it's bad
you're
because
willing to
then
come
you would have
back.
thought everything would have been worse after that because you said this was
Well,
your
that's
favorite.
true.
So you built up to the pinnacle and you were like, I love this. This is the best. Otherwise, you would have been like, you started off great and the rest of the episode was terrible.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be like that. Anything I can learn and share with others is always it's a great thing. So it's all
Can
good.
I do a quick plug before we
Yeah.
go?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, don't share, like, unshare your screen.
I'm gonna unshare my screen. Hold on.
Unshare your screen. Stop sharing your screen.
Stop share.
There you
I got
go.
it. Okay, good. I'm back. Okay, I want to season 2 of our podcast. Partial credits starts, I guess tomorrow, Monday. Tomorrow, September
Monday, yeah.
23rd. Yep. So season 2 starts. You can find that at partial.credit or wherever you download podcasts. Our book, Reality Bites, oh my God, Innovative Learning Using Augmented and Virtual Reality, comes out in January from Dave Burgess Books. And also, I wrote a chapter in the upcoming book, the Chromebook Infused Classroom from Elevate Books. That's Holly Clark's book. That should also be out in January. So please check those out.
I definitely will. And make sure that you include all of your resources in the show notes or the Wakelet collection as well. So
Totally.
we'll have access to that as well.
And I'll be back on before that stuff comes out anyway, so don't worry.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad because I want you to do part 2.
We'll do part 2 for sure.
We'll have to set it up before you go out of the country. All right, let me share my screen real quick, and then we're going to wrap up the show.
Okay.
So to see this episode or past episodes, you can go to the suitetalk.com. That's the SUITE talk.com. And you can see Jesse's episode on the homepage. It will be right here. Also, you can go to the episode and podcast list page, and it will be listed here as well. And you can see any other past shows that I've done. You can find the YouTube video and the show notes here. If you'd like to be a guest on my show, you can go to the homepage and you can scroll down to the guest inquiry section and fill out the guest form. Please, if you have something you want to share, please, be on and pay it forward so we can help other educators around the world, integrate effective technology into the classroom. So topics aren't, limited to just Google. And just subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also join my Facebook group, Subscribe to the newsletter, and I am on Podbean, Spotify, Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Google Play Music as well. So with that being said, I am going to end the show with Jesse. Thank you so much for being on. It was really a pleasure meeting you finally and
Thanks for having me.
learning
I really
all of
appreciate it.
this. I'm really looking forward to part two, and I'm holding you to it.
I'll be back. And now that I know that there's actually I could do stuff other than the geo stuff, like I'm like, oh wait, I can come back and do some other
Oh
stuff too.
yeah,
All right,
yeah.
cool.
No, it's definitely no issue.
All right, cool.
All right. Well, that being said, I will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.